So, hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. Amber, tell me a little bit about today.
Today's a good day, Martin. It's sunny and it's summer. Imagine that.
Yeah, it is gorgeous out there as we record this today. And I do want to bring up something we were just literally talking about before we came on air, and that today feels relaxed and it feels like a very warm conversation where both for our listeners, we're sitting here cross legged. This is not our normal way of setting up.
I am literally sitting cross-legged in my office chair.
Yeah, there's something about today's vibe that just says we're gonna share openly, and it's gonna be fun.
Whoa, share and share openly. Since when have we ever not done that?
Well, funny you should go there.
Oh no, see, and here we go, because I don't know where he's going. So bring it on.
Yeah. So on that topic of sharing openly, you and I consistently have conversations that are we'll just call them really elevated. And when I say elevated, I mean we're having what I like to call chapter 12 conversations, conversations that you can't have if you haven't done your work to get ready and be ready for something. And we create, and I've seen you do it and you've seen me do it, and I really want to bring it into the room, what I'm going to call wow moments.
Wow.
And those are moments where someone comes up to us later and said, wow, you said this thing and it really landed for me. Now, I know you've had some, I know I've had some, but we were talking about this in a conversation earlier this week, and we were talking about the fact that we just talk extemporaneously. Like, we don't plan our stuff. It's not like we're ready. Every time you teach, every time I teach, neither one of us ever has like a script.
Yeah.
We might have 12 words written down on the side of a page. That's the most we have.
Yeah.
But that's how we go. But what I'm curious about is impact here. In some of these times, maybe this is the conversation for today. We've said things on various occasions where someone's gone, wow, I can't believe that's what you were just talking about. And those are moments where we go, hey, in our world around projects, in our world around coaching, sometimes we just say what we think and these things come out.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about a time when you've had that experience.
I think I have experiences like that quite often. And that's not something that I want to brag about. But I think as an educator, I find myself in situations where often that's the case. And, as an educator that is essentially delivering content that I've either written or prepared, and I'm teaching again and again and again, I do have notes. I do have reference materials. But I prefer at this stage to show up in rooms like that and with my preparedness in hand, wait to feel something in the space. I don't know how to describe it other than wait to feel. I think a lot of times when I was young, I was so uncertain of myself, and I lacked. I didn't necessarily lack confidence in my ability. I lacked confidence in the situation and the elements of the situation that I could not control. So I charged in to those rooms with as much control as I could bring to it, to curate the conversation, to create the wow for someone, and to do it with very strict attention to my plan. And I was successful sometimes with that. But the older I get, quite frankly, the less I know. And the older I get, the more comfort I experience in the uncertainty of those rooms, which ironically feels less destabilizing now than I could have ever imagined. And I think it's because I am able to feel the opportunity in the uncertainty. So I walk into a room, I have a prepared lesson plan. I know what the topic of the evening is, And yet there are 5 or 6 different things that happen in the first few minutes of that conversation, whether it's a classroom with students or whether it's a keynote. And because of the things that happen, and I mean literally, somebody moves their chair and it squeaks, or somebody's speaking, with somebody else, or a telephone rings, or I mean, there's just so many subtle things that can happen. And in those few things that happen in those early moments, I find myself just kind of relaxing into it and thinking, okay, what does my intuition tell me we're actually supposed to talk about? If you talk to some of my students, you'll often have them comment, if you ask them about, well, what do you learn from Amber? Oftentimes they'll say a lot of Amber's own examples of their life, their projects, and it's because I open up without preparation and share examples of times that I have found myself in situations relevant to the plan, but they're not scripted. I'm telling a story about something that happened because in relation to the squawking chair noise, it triggers something in my mind and I go, "Oh, I'm gonna give this example today instead." I just sort of follow the feeling in the room. And Martin, I was incapable of doing that when I was younger. Because I was trying so much to control the outcome and so concerned about the certainty that I needed to feel. And now, um, those reins have loosened. And I think there's a lot of reasons why I'm able to do that now and I wasn't able to. What I really want to do, though, with the rest of my career is help others figure it out. Because I do know some of the strategies that I have used to get there. They have been hard earned. And I think in our relationship, some of my strategies you have learned from me. And in the short term, I remember a couple of examples where you were just like, "What?" I remember one conversation we had. It was in a Starbucks, and you were coming at me with a certain concern you had for new language that was being used, and you were really upset, and you were right to feel that. But my response to your frustration and upset was to go, "I think you should get over it." And I remember you being like, "What? You're not even gonna go back on this with me? You're not gonna, like, wrestle it out? We're not gonna have wow moments for each other?" And I was like, "No, my wow moment for you in this is you just need to get over it." And that I think that stands out to me as I do think there's strategies we can use to show up and be present enough that the wow moments are not predetermined by us anymore. The wow comes because we are just experiencing presence and we are attuned to the presence of the moment and we care not for the overall outcome in benefit to us. We care that there's impact. We care that there's value. We care that we're a part of the room, but we don't care about whether it goes our way or not. And that's the kind of stuff that I have learned and I'm continuing to learn, and I am most interested in helping people figure out. Because there's a lot of us of a certain age and stage that feel powerless because our command and control style of speaking and or downloading information to people, it's not working. It doesn't work the same way anymore. And yet we're smart, we're bright, we've got lots of experience. Why won't people listen to us? And I'm like, aha, there's a reason. And I think a lot of it has to do with who are we in those rooms? What's our present countenance?
So I remember that conversation so clearly. And not only
You didn't
that,
think I was going to make my wow moment experience about you.
that's fine. No, no, it's right there. And the thing is that I've heard you say that over and over again
Yeah.
in various contexts and various conversations since that, because I think you're pointing at something. This has been a wow moment. I think sometimes it's a wow moment, but it also is sometimes a conversation piece around I'm going to call it just absolutely how we look at the world. And I say we on this one because you're right. In that moment, I just did need to get over it. Like, just, hey, get past yourself. Like, it's because it was about me in that moment. It
Yes.
wasn't about the situation or what was going on. It was about me addressing that situation.
Which
And when
you
I took ego out of it, I'm like, oh, the solution's right there. Like it just needed me to get around me.
yeah.
But that brings up this wonderful space because you just use command and control.
Mhm.
And we talk about that in the way that you and I deal with things, because one of the things I think sometimes creates wow moments for people, or one of the things that I think sometimes creates, and I'll call it this, the anti wow moment or the resistance moment.
Yes,
The
yes.
resistance moment comes in that command and control space
Often.
because we speak into a world where I always come back to this. If you took whatever was the power away, so whether that's economic power, military power, influence, if you take those away, how are you still a leader?
Yeah.
And I think that's a fundamental question you and I come back to sometimes. If you don't have the ability to force someone to do something, how do you inspire someone to follow?
Well, and the interesting thing is that, this essentially goes to the definition of an interest holder, which is any person who positively or negatively has influence, interest, or impact in your project. And, it's pretty all encompassing. It's every single person gets to have an opinion. This is the thing about humanity. Everyone gets their shot. Everyone has a right to it. And we forget that. We think, oh, you don't have a right to say anything. Well, of course they do. They do. Just they have an intrinsic right to be able to comment, to say, or to contribute to the conversation. And their need to agree with you, not relevant. Their, the autonomy in the room also is a part of how we think about influencing and impacting people without forcing them. And that's where, and I talk about this, I saw a video recently on YouTube and it was talking about, and I'm going to use the traditional term stakeholder. I prefer interest holder, but it was talking about interest holder engagement. And it was not from a project standpoint, it was coming from an operational standpoint. And it was just saying we need to always focus on humanization. I was like, humanization? That's a good word. It's about humanization. And, the wow moments that I have when somebody says something and I feel a wow, or the wow moments that other people have when they hear me say something, it's because we're having a human reaction. And that reaction is not, it's not cerebral, it's the holistic person. It's the feelings, the emotions, it's how it incites something in us, positive or negative. Those wow moments are actually happening. And the more we have those, the way we are made to feel in those moments, that will not just empower us to think differently, it will also empower us to do something about it. And so you think about, how do you get people to do something that you want them to do? You don't. You build rapport and relationship. You humanize your connection to them. And that alone becomes the motivator. Because when someone is literally treated as a human and valued as a human by another human, it builds trust and respect. And then when you need something, or when something presents itself as opportunity, those individuals that trust and respect you, they don't go, I'm not sure if I'm going to help you. They don't. It's the opposite. Where they feel respected and heard, they just show up. So, you don't have to pay them to be there, the same way that you might feel like you have to command and control with, I'm forcing your behavior. Um, so influence and impact really is about humanization, particularly because we're humans and we're talking about the human species. And I think in professional circles, we don't talk about the term humanization, or we maybe need to start talking more about it in the light of technology and artificial intelligence. A wise person once said, before artificial intelligence, we had human intelligence. We still have human intelligence, and human intelligence informed artificial intelligence. So you can't have one without the other. We don't have the artificial without the human, and the human didn't go away. It's still here. So we need to think about how we're doing that. And I think not commanding and controlling a room, not commanding and controlling a conversation, but just being present and feeling it, and then showing up and authentically joining in those rooms and those conversations. Boy, that's really powerful. It feels like a superpower. But when you don't when you don't have access to do it because of your ego, it feels vulnerable. When you have begun to do the work of figuring out how to relegate your ego, those moments you realize it's super powerful. When you can just be present, when you can let a statement go unaddressed, unspoken to, if you disagree with it, or you can just let that go because you're not feeling the charge. You're enabling and allowing, statements to be made and people to share and be themselves without you having to be incited by it. And that is very super powerful. And I think when we behave that way as leaders, people want to follow that. Like when you say, well, how do you remain a leader when you don't have any of the command and control left? I'm like, that's how you do it. You are always focused on the human aspect and your vulnerability with others, which, in the short term maybe makes you feel slightly insecure or vulnerable, becomes a great power in your ability to lay yourself down in service to others, really. And this really talks about arguably the most popular kind of leadership style that we talk about right now in this age and stage, 2025, is servant leadership. And when you are an active service to your followers will follow you. That's just pretty much the way that goes.
And you bring up some beautiful spaces there. And I love the humanization, because I really want to talk about a little space in there too, if that's okay, which is around, because we're humans, we are sometimes lizard and we are sometimes wizard.
Interesting.
And they're both in there.
That's a wow for me. We are both lizard and wizard. Excellent.
Well, and I just come back to how our brains work, right? So
yeah.
So if I brought it, and they're good and bad too, right? A calamity can happen, fight, flight, or freeze. But we forget that that's also on the same thing for something really good. If I brought your favorite celebrity into the room right now, you would have a reaction it would be a lizard. You'd be like, wow, that person's here. And you see that when you have those celebrity crush shows up.
I'm seriously trying to think about who that would be right now.
I'd actually be curious.
I was going to say, oh my gosh, I don't. You know what's really interesting? The first person that came to my mind, and I know why this is Matthew McConaughey. So I don't know if any of you are as familiar with the trajectory of Matthew McConaughey's career as maybe I am. I'll tell you one of the reasons. I was looking into some work with Tony Robbins, and I was looking at what he's been doing and how he's sort of been swirling in the universe that is Tony Robbins. And because I have a book coming out that is endorsed by him, I just was like curious. And I didn't know that he and Matthew McConaughey had worked together. And I didn't know that Matthew McConaughey has this course that he offers and is available through a platform that Tony and his business partner created. So because of that, I recently, in the last couple of months, have listened to more Matthew McConaughey recent. And man, I'm like, all right. Like literally, I was like, because of course he's incredibly handsome, but he's fascinating. And I love the work that he's doing on himself. And I just so appreciate the way he's showing up in rooms transparently and authentically and offering what I consider, I've received wow moments from him. And I really don't believe that he was laying them out because he wanted them to be strategically wow moments. He's just doing him. So I found that really interesting. And so I think he's the one today. If you were going to invite him in, I'd be like, okay, we need to press record and do a different podcast.
So good. And but even in your answer, if I can,
yes,
even in your answer, I could hear both lizard. Wow. But I could also hear the wizard. Did you hear what he just said?
Yeah.
And that's part of being human.
Yeah.
And I think that's where command and control falls away.
Mm.
You can't necessarily split that lizard and that wizard
Mm-hmm.
when you're command. You're just like, I don't care. You're a thing. Go do a thing.
Yeah.
But when you're in that service
Mm-hmm.
and you're in that space where I want to see you, and even I like the way you just even had your own reframe around Matthew. I saw Matthew this way.
Right.
I learned this new thing about him.
Right.
It talked to both my lizard and my wizard. I'm not affiliated. Hey, heard you had a great new course. I did hear about it too at one of the recent Tony Robbins things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming to that humanization.
Yeah.
And I think he speaks into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with a few minutes left, maybe let's talk a little bit about how we can promote humanizing discussions.
Hmm. Well, I think just the fact that where you started this conversation was the wows and how do the wows happen, or how does it feel to be someone who can create a wow for someone? And I think, we just spun that into those wows, I think and I'm not going to speak for you, but I'll speak for me. Those wows for me only really began to happen when I let go of my agenda in those moments. And I think that's a vital part of how you answer the question you just posed. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, humanization always comes back to I'll call it personhood.
Okay.
And there's a story Stephen Covey told. I think it might be in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but he talked about his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was in the conversation he had with Tony Robbins when they used to do the
okay.
the interviews. And he said his mother, he used to say, was a respecter of persons.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were in an elevator years ago, and there was someone from the service industry there, and someone, a very important figure came in, and his mother was just as interested in the waiter
Right.
as in the ambassador.
Right.
And like, there was no difference in
Mm.
humanity
Mm.
between those two people, even though we would have a different relative. How are they in the world, or how are they seen in the world? She was a respecter of persons, that the humanity of all of us is all of us.
Mm.
And so I always come back to, everybody's got a lizard, everybody's got a wizard. But actually, if we're going to have a wow moment, I'll come back to a wow moment in one of the things you and I did years ago, which was around positive intent.
Mm.
That when I see humans and there's good, bad, whatever's going on,
Mm-hmm.
they're just trying to do the best they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And most people are. Like, I just genuinely, and I'm not saying that evil doesn't exist in the world, and I'm not saying that malice doesn't exist in the world.
Of course.
But your average person at a human level is trying to do what they can do for the world. They're trying to enjoy themselves. They're trying to bring their best. And so whenever I get ego and I need to get over myself, I try to remind myself, how is this person, and this is a Mike Mandel trick, by the way, from Mike Mandel Hypnosis, how is this person the most interesting person in the world? If this person was the most interesting person in the world, I want to, they become Matthew McConaughey in that moment. And now I want to, okay, you're Matthew right now.
Right.
And so every day I get to meet a lot of Matthew McConaughey's.
Yeah, it's very true.
And so that's my little trick for humanization.
Yeah, I think of Carl Jung and unconditional positive regard, right? So this is idea of this UPR, where you apply unconditional positive regard. And he came from it as therapist and psychologist, and thinking about how do you give therapy to someone who has arguably, made a really bad choice that you would devalue. And, this idea was, it's unconditional positive regard that you extend. And that when you extend unconditional positive regard to someone, it actually changes the way that person behaves back at you, which then creates that opportunity to see the value, that worthiness that is intrinsic in any human. And I think the humanization means there's no secret to how you make someone feel a wow, Martin, or how I might make someone feel a wow. We all are wowzers. Literally, we can all do it, but it is how much presence can we practice with one another, and how much regard and positivity and humanization we can bring to the moment. And when we do those things, it really is a superpower. And I think it's even more important as we As we head into the future, I mean, in 2025, there is a lot yet we can see in the not too distant future that's going to change. And how we change and evolve will have much to do with how humanized we remain, I think. That would be my thought.
I think that is an amazing wow moment right there. And for anyone listening, share some wow moments. If you've got some space, throw something into the comments. We'd love to hear from you because wow moments are important and you never know when they're coming.
You never know.
So thank you for listening today. Thank you, Amber,
Thanks,
for the
Martin.
wows of this conversation. And
Lizard and wizard.
shout out to Mr. McConaughey. Hope your course is going great. And for today, let's say goodnight.
Bye.